Tucked away in the northern suburbs of Leeds, Meanwood Park Hospital once stood as a significant institution in the realm of mental health care in England. Its vast grounds and imposing Victorian architecture catered to its patients and became the subject of eerie folklore and ghostly tales. Though the hospital no longer functions as it once did, its legacy endures in the local community through history and whispered hauntings. Meanwood Park Hospital opened its doors in 1919, initially intended as a residential care facility for people with learning disabilities. This period marked the rise of specialized institutions that sought to improve the living conditions of vulnerable individuals. At the time, many people with disabilities were housed in workhouses and asylums, places notorious for being overcrowded, underfunded, and often neglectful. The establishment of Meanwood Park Hospital was part of a broader movement aimed at separating the care of individuals with learning disabilities from those deemed mentally ill and providing more structured, long-term care. The hospital represented a shift in societal attitudes toward those with learning disabilities, moving away from punitive or neglectful environments and toward a more compassionate, albeit still flawed, model of care. As the hospital's reputation grew, so did its capacity. Over the decades, Meanwood Park expanded significantly, eventually housing over 800 patients. The hospital was set on sprawling grounds that were designed to be largely self-sufficient. Farms, workshops, and gardens were developed, allowing the institution to provide not only food and basic supplies, but also a form of occupation for both patients and staff. This aspect of self-sufficiency was a common feature of large institutions during this period and was seen as a way to create a more self-contained and stable community. However, despite the seemingly progressive attempts at creating a communal environment, life within the institution was still heavily regimented. Patients were subject to strict schedules, and their freedoms were often severely limited. The institutional approach, while intended to offer care, often fell short of providing the dignity and autonomy that residents needed. Reports of overcrowding, lack of personal privacy, and outdated treatment methods, such as electroconvulsive therapy, were not uncommon, leading to growing criticism of such facilities. By the 1970s, significant changes were underway in the mental health care landscape. The rise of community-based support services, combined with growing criticism of the large institutional model, led to widespread reform. The deinstitutionalization movement, which sought to close down large institutions in favor of smaller, more humane and community-centered care, marked the beginning of the end for Meanwood Park Hospital. Slowly, the wards began to close, and patients were relocated to alternative care arrangements. This gradual process stretched over several decades, culminating in the final closure of the hospital in the 1990s. The site of Meanwood Park Hospital has since been largely redeveloped into residential housing, reflecting the changing needs of the area. However, remnants of the hospital's infrastructure remain visible, serving as a quiet reminder of the institution's long history and the evolution of mental health care in the UK. Like many former mental health institutions, Meanwood Park Hospital has garnered a reputation for paranormal activity, especially after its closure. The imposing, decaying buildings, once filled with patients and staff, have become the backdrop for unsettling stories of ghostly encounters. The hospital's long history, marked by the suffering and isolation of many of its residents, has contributed to an aura of tragedy that some believe lingers in the form of paranormal activity. Over the years, locals and urban explorers who dared to venture into the hospital's abandoned corridors have reported strange occurrences that are difficult to explain. The eerie quiet of the empty wards and hallways is often interrupted by strange noises, creaks, whispers, and sometimes inexplicable bangs, creating a sense of unease for those who enter the space. One of the most common and enduring tales involves the apparition of a nurse who is said to roam the former wards at night. Witnesses describe seeing her as a shadowy, indistinct figure, moving silently through the darkened hallways as though she is still performing her rounds. The ghostly nurse is often seen near what used to be the patient wards, particularly late at night, giving the impression that she is checking in on those long gone. Some say she appears sad or burdened, her spectral presence a sign that she remains tied to the hospital, unable to rest. According to local legend, this nurse is thought to have been a real staff member who met an untimely death on the hospital grounds. The circumstances surrounding her death remain unclear, with rumors suggesting it could have been the result of an accident, a tragic mistake during a medical procedure, or even something more sinister. Her continued presence, according to believers, is a testament to her dedication to the patients she cared for during her life, and perhaps a reflection of unfinished business or unresolved grief. The paranormal activity isn't limited to the apparition of the nurse. Visitors to the abandoned site have also reported hearing disembodied voices echoing through the buildings, particularly in areas that were once used as children's wards. These voices range from faint whispers to more distinct sounds of laughter, crying, or even conversations that seem to carry through the air despite the rooms being empty. Some claim to have heard the hurried patter of footsteps in the corridors or the sound of a door closing in the distance, despite no one else being present. These auditory phenomena have given rise to speculation that the spirits of former patients, particularly children, may still linger within the hospital's walls, replaying moments from their time in the institution. The idea of children's spirits remaining in such a place adds an extra layer of poignancy to the ghost stories surrounding Meanwood Park, as it reflects the tragic lives many of these children may have led. In addition to these auditory and visual experiences, visitors have reported other unsettling phenomena. Cold spots, areas of sudden, inexplicable temperature drops, are frequently mentioned, particularly in sections of the hospital that were once used for patient care. These cold spots are often accompanied by a feeling of being watched, with some explorers describing a sudden chill down their spine, as if unseen eyes are following their every move. Flickering lights, despite the hospital's lack of electricity, have also been reported, along with objects that seem to move on their own. While many of these occurrences could potentially be explained by the hospital's dilapidated condition, with drafts and unstable foundations causing creaks and temperature shifts, the sheer number of reports has fueled the belief that Meanwood Park is a hotbed of paranormal activity. These stories have drawn the attention of paranormal investigators, ghost hunters, and thrill seekers, all hoping to capture evidence of the supernatural. For the local community, the tales surrounding Meanwood Park Hospital have become part of its legacy, transforming the site from a symbol of outdated mental health care into a haunted landmark filled with mystery and intrigue. Though Meanwood Park Hospital has largely been transformed into residential properties, the site's legacy remains deeply significant to those who remember its original purpose. The hospital, once a bustling institution that served hundreds of patients, was not just a physical place, but a symbol of the broader shifts in how society viewed and treated individuals with learning disabilities. For many former staff members, Meanwood Park represents a time in their lives when they were at the forefront of mental health care. Despite the institution's limitations and the criticisms that would later emerge regarding such facilities, the staff often worked tirelessly under difficult conditions, driven by a sense of duty to care for those who were otherwise marginalized and forgotten by society. Many of these workers formed close bonds with the patients, seeing them as more than just cases, but as individuals deserving of compassion and respect. For the families of the patients, Meanwood Park Hospital holds a bittersweet place in their memories. It was a site where their loved ones, often with severe and lifelong disabilities, were cared for in ways that families themselves could not manage. For some, the hospital provided a sense of relief, knowing that their family members were receiving professional care in a structured environment. However, for others, the memories are more conflicted. The institutional setting, with its rigid routines and sometimes impersonal treatment, could feel isolating, and there were always concerns about the quality of life within such a facility. Families often had to grapple with feelings of guilt and helplessness, knowing that their loved ones were spending their lives in a place where individual attention and personal freedoms were often limited. Beyond the personal memories of those connected to Meanwood Park, the hospital represents an important chapter in the history of mental health care in the UK. It stands as a reminder of an era when large, isolated institutions were seen as the best solution for managing people with disabilities and mental health issues. Over time, the hospital's story mirrors the broader evolution of mental health care policy, from the warehousing of patients in institutional settings to the eventual shift toward deinstitutionalization and community-based care in the latter half of the 20th century. The closure of Meanwood Park and similar institutions across the UK was part of a nationwide movement that recognized the need for more humane, individualized care for people with disabilities, and it marked a turning point in how mental health and disability services were provided. In addition to its role in healthcare history, the hospital has also become a fixture of local folklore, with its abandoned buildings inspiring tales of hauntings and paranormal activity. These stories, whether fueled by the hospital's often tragic past or simply by the eerie atmosphere of its deserted corridors, have left an indelible mark on the local community. Even as the hospital has been redeveloped into residential housing, the ghost stories and legends persist, keeping the memory of Meanwood Park alive in a different way. For locals, the site's legacy is twofold. It is both a reminder of the past struggles and advancements in mental health care and a source of supernatural intrigue that continues to capture the imaginations of those who live nearby. Whether through personal memories or eerie legends, Meanwood Park Hospital remains a significant part of the community's identity, bridging the gap between history and myth. In the end, the story of Meanwood Park Hospital is one of transformation, from a place of care and controversy to one of ghostly intrigue and mystery. Its remaining structures stand as silent witnesses to a bygone era, forever entwined with the haunted echoes of its past. Did you enjoy today's episode? Let us know your theories and questions in our comments section. Your feedback fuels our investigations. Join us next time as we continue our journey into the heart of darkness. This is Midnight Society, the Bradford Chronicles, the